love hearing everyone in such good sound on a Sunday morning. It's a great way to start the service. Welcome to CVUUS. My name is Ellen Flight, and I'm the worship associate for this morning's service. I welcome you to the building from Zoom and to those who may find us later on our website. We have hearing assistance for those who need it at the back table with Mary and Dorothy. We'll gather after the service for food and conversation downstairs in the Ann Ross Fellowship Hall, and I hope you'll join us there. And if you look on the back of your order of service, you'll see different ways you can get in touch and communicate with us, things that are important for us to know or that you'd like to have help with. Apparently we have run out of orders of service, so please share around so that people know who'd like to have an order of service to follow along with. This morning's service is led by the Reverend Tricia Hart, one of our two interim ministers. And this morning we'll be discussing the topic, the pieces of your puzzle. We recognize that CVUUS gathers on the land of the Western Abenaki people. We respect their spiritual relationship to the land. We hope to learn from them how we can live together in balance with the earth. To that end, I share a story about the Western Abenaki this morning. This description comes from Shelburne Farm, when in August of 2015, they hosted the Wabanaki Confederacy Conference of the Western Abenaki people. The nations attending were the Micmac, Passamaquoddy, Penobscot, Wolastoqiyik, and the Western Abenaki people. Abenaki chief Don Stevens explained some of the pieces from the conference that were sacred to become parts of the attending tribe's future ceremonies. He says, the Western Abenaki people built a fire pit during the conference. The white limestone rocks that encircled the sacred fire pit are a sign of purity and holiness. They provided a place for our people to make offerings of tobacco and carry our prayers to the Creator. These particular stones were the central spiritual center during the Wabanaki Confederacy Conference and contain the spiritual medicines of that event. The sacred fire was protected by our fire keepers 24 hours a day throughout the conference. Afterwards, I saved the ashes in containers, which I brought to the Wabanaki Confederacy meeting the following year. I gave a container to each of the tribes so the ashes could be included in their own fires in their homelands. Some of the ashes were also included in the bundle of sacred objects to care for, which goes to the tribal nation hosting the Wabanaki Confederacy gathering each year. So in keeping with our theme for today, these ashes are pieces of their puzzle. Now, if you'll join me in the chalice lighting. There we go. The words are in your order of service or on the screen above. Our expert fire lighter. So together, as we kindle this flame, may our hearts be open to everything inside us, between us, and all around us that helps us live more fully.
Our call to worship. Welcome to this space, this sanctuary of peace, where we come to not only create our best selves, but to do the work of creating a beloved community. We come together today as individuals, much like individual pieces of glass or pottery that are different shapes, sizes, and colors, all of which are broken with imperfect, jagged edges, but always beautiful. While our pieces may not always fit neatly together, it is within this sanctuary, guided by our principles, that we gather together to create a beautiful mosaic. May the brokenness and beauty you find in one another create peace in this space and fill our hearts with love as we create worship together.
Even after doing things in worship for over 11 years, I still have the experience where I am trying to find the perfect thing to bring. Some people are laughing. I can't imagine why. Right, still believing that maybe there's some perfect thing that I can bring or sing or say or do or dress like that will be amazing and astound everyone. Forget your perfect offering. And sometimes that feeling when I don't feel like whatever I'm bringing or wearing or doing or saying or singing, I'm wishing I had finished my cough drop a little earlier. Speaking of imperfections, sometimes when that thing doesn't feel like it's what I'm wanting or like it's enough or it's good enough or even though there's so many things I could do that I have done before, I could even do one of them again. It's like I'm holding out for this other make-believe thing. Ring the bells that still can ring. And if I get into this stuff deeply enough, it can really make me feel like I'm not enough. I'm not enough. The stuff I'm bringing isn't enough. I don't look good enough. I will often think, even after years of thinking and being on this planet, that most people around me seem to have it be doing life like more easily. And why is it so hard for me to do life? There is a crack in everything. And I have to remind myself, and sometimes this is really, really hard. Sometimes I can't even do it myself. I need someone else to remind me that these bits in me, which is really most of me, the parts that feel like they're not enough, or they're broken, or it's like an open place in my heart that sometimes feels great and sometimes is brutal, that these are the bits where love gets into me and connection gets into me and other people get into me and ideas that I don't already have can come. Brene Brown has said that you don't get to choose feeling some emotions and not feeling others. Even if you try, really, if you want to feel the good stuff, you feel. That's how the light gets in, that's how the light gets in. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing the song. It's one verse called Forget Your Perfect Offering that is based on a Leonard Cohen song called Anthem, which I encourage you to check out if you haven't. The song is mostly an echo song, so I sing something, you sing it back to me. The only bit that's not like that is the very end, which goes like this. So at the end, let's see, where we have just gone, that's how the light, and I sing, gets in, and then everybody sings, that's how the light gets in. So let's just sing that line. That's how the light gets in again. That's how the light gets in. One more time. That's how the light gets in. You got it. Okay. All right, my friends, so open your hearts and let's sing. Forget your perfect offering. Forget your perfect offering. Ring the bells that you can ring. Ring the bells that you can ring. There is a crack in everything. There is a crack in everything. That's where the light gets in. That's how the light gets in. Forget your perfect offering. Ring the bells that you can ring. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets in. Forget your perfect offering. Ring the bells that you can ring. There is a light in everything. That's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets in. Get your perfect offering. Ring the bells that you can ring. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets. That's how the light gets in. 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 And now we're going to sing the kids and the adults doing RE. Out to RE to keep our hearts open and let the light in so that we can let the light out. And we're doing this song a little differently today. It's going to be Blowing in the Wind, and Kimberli's going to sing it at the beginning, and you'll know when, you'll get a signal of when to come in? Or do you want to? Sing the first verse, and then we're all going to sing the first and second. There we go. Kimberli's going to sing the first verse, then we will all sing the first verse and the second verse, and we, my children and others, will leave as Kimberli is singing. If that's okay. So take it away.
It is definitely a day of imperfections. I, for example, did not realize until Ellen asked me if I'd intended it, did not mean to be wearing 2 different earrings. But, you know, why not? Apparently, they complement each other quite well. It is lovely to look out and see all of you. Some of you are here every single week. Some of you come sometimes. Some of you may be here for the first time today, and that's all wonderful. There are lots of ways of being connected to other people in this congregation beyond just coming on Sunday mornings. And those of you who do have an order of service, if you don't have an order of service and you really like to look at one, can you just put your hand up for a sec? Because I bet somebody would volunteer to hand you one. Oh, no one is needy. All right, good. There is, on the other side of the order of service, there's a whole list of ways of being involved. The couple that are just coming right up, and I want to remind you to put them on your calendar. One is the contra dance. Okay, here's the quiz. When is the contra dance? The 22nd. And what time does it start? 7 o'clock. And who's invited? Everyone. Is it any fun? All right. So that's a thing you can try if you haven't. And, okay, this is probably too easy a question, but when is Thanksgiving dinner? Yeah, which Thursday? The 28th? The 4th Thursday, I would say. Yes, it is the 4th Thursday according to federal law, and it is also happening here. What time is the potluck? 1 o'clock. All right. And who's invited? Everybody. Wonderful. Ellen says you can bring your friends too, but they won't know they're invited unless you invite them. And you can bring whatever it is you'd like to bring to share. I want to talk about one other pathway of connection that this congregation does sometimes, and that is a topic you may have heard something about, which is a fire drill. How many of you heard that there was going to be a fire drill today, or something? Okay. So, because I love doing these quizzes with you, I want to just figure out how much some of you know about how to do a fire drill in this space. It has been several years since there has been a practicing of how to get safely out of this building if there were an emergency, including a fire. So, where is, this is a compass question, where is the west door? Right over there, right. And where is the east door? Did you all know that there's an east door? There's actually a door right there. Oh, I have somebody doing, I think Brenda is signals for me. And when a fire drill happens, it depends on where you're sitting in the sanctuary, which door you go out. So it's important for people to, it might even be good if you sort of look around when you come in and figure out which door you might go out. And if you are a person who needs some assistance with moving, where do you go? Anybody know? Well, there is actually, this is a little advertisement. There is on the website, the CVUUS.org website, a whole description of this process. And it has been updated since the last time there was a fire drill. So I've studied it a bit, but I bet a lot of you haven't seen it. The idea is for people who have a hard time moving and who can't walk very far, that waiting with assistance, with somebody staying with you on the patio is a good place for people to be. Where do the kids go? Across which street? Yes. And how do they know that there's a fire drill? Assuming that the kids have already left and that Poppy and the teachers and the children are all in Fenn House, how do they know? Well, the question of how we know is also a little bit up in the air. So the fact that you don't know this is okay. It could be walkie-talkies, which we're not quite sure how to use at the moment. We could also have a text. This is why we're not actually doing it today. And I want actually to give lots of props to the safety committee, because they are the group of people who have actually been thinking about this and updating things. And they know perfectly well that because of changing the internet access, how the fire drill works is actually something of a mystery at the moment, but we're going to sort it out. But it's very important that they get the message, either because somebody texts them or calls Poppy on the phone, or the walkie-talkies perhaps. And that's all well and good, but what about the people who are someplace here in this building, but not in this room? Like maybe they're downstairs, like maybe they're getting ready for social hour, like maybe they're in the bathroom, like maybe they're parents with small children in the nursery. Maybe they're doing something else. The reason I'm telling you all of this is because I want your help in thinking, because in order to do all of this, it's not rocket science, we can do it, but we need a little team of people who are super focused on details and think that this is an important thing to do, which of course it is, and are willing to volunteer to be monitors, to be trained as a monitor, to check the other part of the building, to help with the people who need help, to make sure that RE is in the loop. And Mike and I talked this morning, and I'm inviting you, if you want, you can talk to me afterwards, you can talk to Mike. You could also put your hand up right now, and Mike is going to write your name down. David Bristol. Yes. Hi, Scott. Yes. Yes. Dorothy. And Andrea. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. This is one of the things that changed as a result of COVID, and we're changing it back. And I realized for a little bit of time in the last weeks leading up to this that I was for a while thinking that this was my job as one of the temporary co-interim ministers to sort it out. And then I thought, well, I can sort it out all I want, but I'm not going to be here that much longer. So I think it's important for the congregation to have its systems up in the air. Okay, not up in the air, pinned down. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It is also my privilege to introduce the offering this morning. We do this every week to remind ourselves that the congregation exists because of the generosity of its friends and members. And also, we take up the offering because we want to give half of it away to an organization that is, or an effort or a program that is doing the work in the community that we all want to make sure gets done, and most of us don't have the opportunity to do directly. As you probably know, this month, the beneficiary of the shared offering is, in fact, the discretionary fund in this congregation. It used to be called Minister's Discretionary Fund, and when Christina and I got here, we said, let's cross out that minister's word, because it really is an effort of the congregation, and we just help to coordinate it. And this year, especially, the discretionary fund has been amplified in every way, including its effectiveness, because of the efforts of Tom Morgan and the partner organizations that he's working with, and a number of other people in this congregation. I asked Tom to give me some very recent examples of ways in which monetary gifts to and from the discretionary fund have made a difference in people's lives. And two examples are they paid for a week's worth of groceries for a family of 4 who had already used their trips to area food shelves for the month. Did you know that you can't just go to the food shelf as often as you need to? And the discretionary fund also funded several gas cards and subway cards for unhoused folks who needed a meal as they traveled through the area. Just two examples of the very direct way your gifts are being used and will be used. This morning's offering will now be most gratefully received.
There are many, many yellow cards, so if you'll just give me a moment to sort of shuffle them a bit so that they... Okay. All right. This first card is from Ali Coltrara. This will be my last time at CVUUS for a while, ... I'm moving to Somerville, Massachusetts on December 8th. I'll be starting a new job, training as a butcher, and trying to live a less car-centric life. Thank you for your kind wishes on this next chapter, new adventure. Bob Pasco writes, oh, yes, I thank you. I just saw the underline of keep confidential. Hannah Session. Many of us remember our beloved member and artist, Patty Segreci. Today, immediately after the service, we will be installing a mobile given to us by Patty's husband, and we will be remembering Patty in a brief ceremony in the Blue Room, the library attached to the fellowship hall. Please join us. And from Johanna, word that Monty Montgomery fell and broke his hip and leg, and he is at Porter, not yet ready for visitors, so stay tuned, look at the blast, and that may give us more information later in the week. And Helene Vanderberg reminds us of the passing of Marjorie Carson earlier this week. She writes, "Gratitude for the life of Marjorie Carson, one of the first to welcome us to CVUUS. Loving hugs to all who cared for her. You know who you are." And I would just like to also lift up Jenny Ashenfelter for her deep and caring friendship to the very end, really exemplifying what true friends can do for one another. And so I want to just, on Marjorie's behalf, say thank you so much for all you did. And finally, from Ann Webster, "As many of you know, my brother had a house fire on November 14th. The loss was substantial, but our hearts are more burdened and broken for the loss of Laren. She died from injuries sustained in the fire on November 15th. Ironically, the same day my mother died 5 years ago. Thank you to all who have reached out. Your compassion is overwhelming. Currently, we are fine with food and tangible needs. Please know I will not hesitate to reach out if we need help."
I'd invite all of us to take a breath. Maybe one more time so you can feel the breath coming all the way into your body and out again. Some weeks are especially hard. Some weeks are full of transitions that no matter how hard we try, we're not ready for. And yet, we do know how to help each other in those moments of not being prepared. What a blessing. What a gift. What an extraordinary thing, really, to be part of a community of people whose names, not all of which you even know, but they are nevertheless connected to you, to all of us. And we can hold one another through those hard weeks.
Our reading this morning is called Jigsaw by Lawrence Kushner, a rabbi. There must have been a time when you entered a room and met someone, and after a while you understood that unknown to either of you, there was a reason you had met. You had changed the other, or they had changed you. By some word or deed, or just by your presence together, the errand had been completed. Then perhaps you were a little bewildered, or humbled, or grateful, and it was over. Each lifetime is the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, For some, there are more pieces. For others, the puzzle is more difficult to assemble. Some seem to be born with a nearly complete puzzle. And so it goes, souls wandering this way and that, trying to assemble the myriad parts. But know this, no one has within themselves all the pieces of their puzzle. Like before the days when they used to seal jigsaw puzzles in cellophane, ensuring that all the pieces were there. Everyone carries with them at least one and probably many pieces to someone else's puzzle. Sometimes they know it, and sometimes they don't. And when you present your piece, which is worthless to you, to another, whether you know it or not, whether they know it or not, you are a messenger from the Most High. When I first read that, I had some immediate thoughts, which I'm now going to share with you. Not quite as immediate when I wrote them, but in my role as a summer camp director, it was my job each year to assemble the puzzle that created the staff for the season. And the language I used to describe the hiring of the summer staff was putting together a puzzle. Each summer, I needed to hire somewhere in the range of 70 to 75 people over my 24 years as camp director, that is a lot of people. First, I got, or tried to get, commitments from returning staff. Then, before working on hiring the American college students, I started screening and hiring international staff from the applications sent from our partner agency. I always requested staff 21 or older with specific skills in camping or outdoor pursuits. I was often amazed at how quickly some of the new hires felt and expressed their feeling of finding their place, as if their fitting into our puzzle provided a piece that also completed a section of their own puzzle. For some, this happened rather quickly, and for others, it took a while. It may seem obvious, but rehiring good, solid staff is a lot easier than hiring someone for the first time. There is a fairly steep learning curve for new staff, but each season, things are more familiar, and staff also see ways to learn and grow and develop their own leadership skills. Working at an American summer camp provides international staff with an affordable way to travel to the States because they earn money while also having 6 weeks to travel on their J-1 visa when camp is over. We also provided an opportunity for all staff to work for additional money both pre- and post-season. This was especially appealing to international staff as it provided extra funds to make that travel possible and more extensive. Over the years, we developed quite a good record for having international staff return for 3 or more summers. For me, having such a small group of staff in residence during the pre- and post-season meant I had a chance to interact more closely with those on the work crew. The work crews were most often filled with international staff who had more flexibility than their American counterparts. In addition to the work, we also shared 3 meals a day as a smaller group of 8 to 10 people. In the early years, we shared and prepared meals out of my cabin rather than in the much larger dining hall and industrial kitchen. The screen porch and the grill and picnic tables right outside provided a more intimate setting for our meals. These were some of my favorite days during the summer, as we all got to know each other more deeply, laughed and shared jokes, and told stories about summers past and present as we broke bread together. Throughout the years, I have stayed in touch with many of the former staff through visits, and for those far away, through social media accounts and postings. I have loved seeing friendships started at camp with strangers become lifelong connections of important meaning in their lives. People have traveled to see one another around the world. 13 staff traveled to Slovenia to be part of the wedding of 2 women from the staff who became one of the first gay couples to openly marry in their country. Almost 10 years after meeting, a camp friend from England and one from New Zealand hiked the El Camino de Santiago together. A crew of 7 committed canoe trippers decided to take on the long trail and hike the entire trail one post-season. And many, many have been in and attended one another's weddings and helped welcome babies into the world. Puzzle piece is growing and multiplying year by year. And now, this spring, several more pieces in my puzzle will be gathered when I travel to New Zealand for a month. I'm actively working to arrange visits with 4 of the former staff who live there, 2 from more than 20 years ago. My desire to visit comes directly from those conversations at pre- and post-season meals where I started to want to see the beautiful places they describe and to experience the magic of their country. We are all excited to see one another in person once again. As the words in the song we'll hear at the end of the service describes that excitement, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I help from singing?
So here we are, gathered together in this time we call worship. At least some of us do. I like to think of worship in its oldest meaning, as I understand it, worth-ship, and that we are attending to that which is of worth. We come because it makes us feel better, because of comfort, because of friendship, long-term or maybe very new. We come to get ready for another week. They do keep coming. To prepare now for a darkening season, which is hard for many of us. You come maybe because there'll be just the right song, a reading that provokes you to think, because the minister might have something helpful to say, especially today. It's been 12 days since the election. Surely she's figured out something. It might be hopeful or helpful or maybe even inspiring. You come hoping to find an answer to that question, what do we do now? I really hate to disappoint you. What can we do in this moment in our country's history, in our world's unfolding, other than be vigilant and pay attention and speak up and write letters when we have something to say or post on social media or show up at a meeting or a demonstration or a march to support the values that we hold most dear? We can do that. We can pay attention. We can not keep silent when it might make a difference. In my life, and especially in the lives of those who are far more at risk than I or most of us. I have been doing a lot of reading and listening these last couple of weeks and before, trying to understand how we got to this moment, which I do believe is momentous in our country's history, which is so terrifying and uncertain. Some people are quite certain that they know what's going to happen, and as far as I can tell, a lot of that is certainty that it's all horrible. Others are apparently certain that it's going to be great. And I find that I am certain about very little. including about my country, the fellow human beings that I share this nation with. That is one thing I thought I was certain about, and now not so much. I came across that poem that Ellen read a few minutes ago. I came across it years, maybe decades ago. It is by, as she said, Lawrence Kushner, who's a rabbi and a storyteller. And his work pretty much always provokes me to wonder in some new way. He's a Reform rabbi. He served a congregation in suburban Boston for 28 years. He's now a scholar in residence at the Congregation Emmanuel in San Francisco. And it turns out that Rabbi Kushner is also a mystic. And he explained what he means by that in an interview he did with Krista Tippett a decade ago. Here's a little of what he said. What our generation seems to be living through is the realization that rationalism is only part of the answer. I think, he writes, and I'm not the first one to notice this, that Auschwitz and Hiroshima were perfectly rational decisions and behaviors. So religion has to be more than rationalism. And mysticism offers something else, a direct experience of the divine. He offers this as the definition of a mystic. Anyone who has the gnawing suspicion that the apparent discord, brokenness, contradictions, and discontinuities that assault us every day might conceal a hidden unity. I'm not sure I understand exactly what he means, but it does draw my attention. As does the jigsaw poem. Each lifetime is the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, souls wandering this way and that, trying to assemble the myriad parts. But know this, he says, no one has within themselves all the pieces to their puzzle. No one, none of us, have all the pieces that we need. And everyone carries with them at least one and probably many pieces to someone else's puzzle. Sometimes they know it, sometimes they don't. And when you present your piece, which is worthless to you, to another, whether you know it or not, whether they know it or not, you are a messenger from the Most High. So, does this time of upheaval and division and fear also maybe offer us opportunities to gather some pieces that we've been missing from our own puzzles? Or maybe chances for us to share pieces that we have and don't need with someone else? Is that part of what we're learning? When I knew I wanted to talk to you about this idea, I asked myself, okay, Tricia, when? When have you been in a situation where, all unexpected, you received a piece of your puzzle that you didn't have and didn't know? And almost immediately, I thought of an experience that I had when I was in Charleston, West Virginia, a place where I had learned things almost every day. It was the winter after Michael Brown was killed in Ferguson, Missouri. And Black Lives Matter was a growing movement. And the Charleston police force was not a perfect organization, unsurprisingly. And the clergy, especially the black clergy in the city of Charleston, decided, they talked to the mayor and they decided we need to do something. So they created an event. It was a Saturday, I think, in one of the hotels downtown. And they invited members of the police force, mostly senior members and experienced members of the police force, and a whole bunch of clergy, the black clergy and the white clergy and the people who work for agencies many times that work with people who have interactions with the police. And the way it worked after a brief introduction was that everybody was organized in a table of 8 or 10 people, and there was a facilitated discussion. All the questions in the facilitated discussion were planned ahead of time by the clergy people, and I was asked by a clergy colleague if I would be a facilitator. Well, I know how to facilitate, so of course I said yes. I was not prepared. We sat down in the circle, and the first question that I posed to the group in my role as facilitator, the first question was something like, what do you perceive, what do you think are the obstacles that come between you and others that you need to interact with? Specifically, we're talking about police and people that they work with in an attempt to keep the peace. Something like that. I had no idea what was going to happen, but of course I expected that there would be a discussion, maybe it would be hard, about racism, about implicit bias, about how hard it is for people to respond with their better selves in a moment of tension. But the senior police officer who was sitting at the table spoke first, and he said something like, the problem is how you feel about us. I was a bit taken aback, so of course I did the facilitator trick. I said, tell me more. It was a remarkable discussion. I will not, I don't know how many minds were changed as we went back and forth, and the police talked about their experience and how they felt, these gentlemen said, misunderstood and maligned and disrespected, even by the clergy in the community, not to mention the people that they were working with. And how the clergy and the helping people felt that the police were closed-minded, were uninterested in anybody else's opinion. We started at that point, but we started in a different starting point than I thought we were going to, where we, I, other people like me, were gonna, compassionately and non-agitatedly bring these ideas to a group of people who somehow didn't know them. That's not what happened. And what I learned that I will never forget, though it's so obvious, I don't know why I hadn't thought of it before. These very experienced police officers, I learned in a second in the stories that they told, that they know far more what the life of a child whose parent or parents are in trouble with the law, specifically because of substance abuse. They know far more about what that kid's life is like. They know what happens when the police show up at 2 a.m. to arrest a parent, and they do, and they take that parent out of the apartment, and nobody goes back to sleep. Nobody has breakfast, but in the morning, the kid goes to school because that's where safety is and that's where food is. That's where they're going to get to eat. So what the police realized was that this is not a great setup for that child to have a good day in school. In fact, it's almost guaranteed that the child will not have a good day in school and may well misbehave in a way that, according to school policy, is going to result in a suspension. So the Charleston Police Department developed a program, which apparently has been copied in other cities around the country, where the police officer, without violating any confidentiality, calls the counselors in the school to say, Susie's going to have a hard time today. And the counselor says, thank you, and goes to the classroom where Susie is in first grade or third grade or fifth grade, and invites them to come to the nurse's office where they get to take a nap or play games or eat something. And the day goes by and the child is safe and can go home and can come back to school the next day. I didn't know any of that, but I'll never forget it. As I was wandering around in the vast world of the internet, trying to figure out what I think and what I could possibly say, I came across some of the work of Andrea Gibson. Do any of you know Andrea Gibson? Highly, highly recommend that all of you get to know Andrea Gibson's work. They are a poet, a performer, a blogger, a person who is not a part of the binary gender system that we have, and who has a way of putting things into words that I just think is a great gift. And the name of the blog, I think it is, I really love too, Andrea Gibson's blog, is called Things That Don't Suck. So if you look up Things That Don't Suck and you read the post-election letter to a friend, it's in response to the fact that the day after the election, Andrea got a text from a friend which said, "What do we do now?" Andrea apparently said mostly staring at the wall for hours was the first reaction, but then a week later they posted this piece, post-election letter to a friend. Definitely gave me some missing pieces in my puzzle, and I want to share some of it with you. Andrea writes, "As we look for creative paths forward, I want to beg the left to stop tearing each other to shreds over who is the best at fighting for change. When we allow our egos to do our heart's work, what needs to get done doesn't get done. I understand that people are frantic for a clear and direct answer, but it is so important to choose curiosity over certainty in a moment that asks us to create something entirely new. A moment that asks us to create something entirely new. This, they say, is that moment. Curiosity, creative imagination, questions like, what does a compassionate world look like? What would it feel like to wake up every morning to a planet fueled by community and not capitalism? Andrea makes the point that we can only create as much as we can imagine, and says, as long as I'm glued to my phone doom scrolling, it's impossible to creatively imagine anything. That idea really stuck with me. And then they go on. Anytime I've got my feet in the grass, I open in a new way. You can mirror the earth's steady and persistent pace. Save the seeds of an apple. Grow veggies in plant pots on the windowsill. Feed a stranger. Drive a neighbor through the sunshine to a doctor's appointment in another state. Never forget how alone we are not. The moss, the mountains, the redwood tree, the marigold, the mourning dove are our allies. Every natural thing in this world is invested in the peace of this world. And all that is good and gracious whispers, we are with you. Gibson also encouraged us to feel a deep responsibility, and they write it this way, feel a deep responsibility to be grateful for our lives through this time, to wholly cherish every morning we are alive to see the sun. I know the upcoming years will be challenging, they write, but if the upcoming years are also cherished, they will be less challenging. All of this wisdom seems to me really crucial, and none of it, I'm struck by the fact that none of it was clear to me and the people I spent time with in 2016 or in 2020. Every person who voted for Trump is not ignorant, hateful, racist, and bad, and believing that hurts us and everything we're working for. It damages any possibility that we could possibly live true to the second principle of Unitarian Universalism since 40 years ago, that we affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. That's the truth we need to take in and find a way to live by. So here's the last point that Andrea Gibson made that I want to share with you. There is a lot of hate in our country, that's true. And hate does not encourage conversation. But there's even more fear than there is hate. And with fear, it is possible sometimes to have what they call an honest and respectful conversation which might reach the root of someone else's fear. There's so much we can learn from each other in regard to working with difficult emotions to minimize the time we are undone by those difficult emotions. Gibson actually says it more bluntly. We can't be chronically destroyed by microaggressions and also be people who can organize around the violent deportation of millions of our community members or any other inhumane cruelty. This moment in history isn't only about rooting in our values. It's about rooting in our tenacity, our courage, our strength, our curiosity. That's hard for me. Maybe for you too. But it's something we can do. So may it be.
My life goes on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the clear, the far off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It finds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the tempest loudly roars? I know my Savior liveth. Although the darkness binds me close, deep in the night sweet songs he giveth. His inner peace makes fresh my heart, a fountain ever springing. Since love is Lord of heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing?
Will you say the words with me as we extinguish our chalice? Our closing words are from my friend and colleague, the Reverend Joe Cherry. If we have any hope of transforming the world and changing ourselves, we must be bold enough to step into our discomfort, brave enough to be clumsy there, loving enough to forgive ourselves and others. May we, as a people of faith, be granted the strength to be so bold, so brave, and so loving. So this is something a little different. As many of you probably know, Phil Lesh died a few weeks ago. And I don't know, I just was determined to try to sing a Grateful Dead song for you all. And I think the reason is that actually through their music, they did exemplify a lot of the UU values. So we're gonna just put our heart into it and see what happens. Do you want to play those notes one more time?
In the attics of my life, full of cloudy dreams unreal, full of tastes no tongue can know, and lights no eyes can see. When there was no ear to hear, you sang to me. I have spent my life seeking all that's still unsung, bent my ear to hear the tune, and close my eyes to see. When there were no strings to play, you played to me. In the book of love's own dream, where all the print is blood, where all the pages of my days and all my lives grow old. When I had no wings to fly, you flew to me. You flew to me. In the secrets of my dreams, where I dreaming lay amazed, when the secrets all are told, and the petals all unfold, when there was no dream of mine,